Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapito Sibidi. Now, first story, organised labour and government have agreed that there is an urgent need to review the single spine pay policy to ensure fair remuneration for workers. The pay policy was introduced over a decade ago to address pay gaps and worsening conditions of service of employees. But the labour unions say their service conditions are rather worsening. Reading the communique at the end of the 2022 Labour Conference in Kwewu, Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafo-Awo, noted the review is expected to be completed by March and a roadmap for implementation adopted.
Government should strengthen the capacity of the Labour Department and the National Labour Commission to enforce the labour laws and regulations as well as directives for the settlement of disputes. Government should enhance its commitment towards the effective and timely prevention of labour disputes by providing resources to the institutions established for the enforcement of labour laws, regulations, and the resolutions of disputes. That the issue of National Labour Conference is now institutionalized and it will be held annually at Kwewu in the month of February. On our second thematic area, i.e. salaries, conditions of service, and productivities, these were the outcomes. Government should review the single spine pay policy to address the current issues of salary inequities, inequalities, weak salary administration, and weak management of conditions of service. In this regard, government should constitute a technical committee by end of March 2022 to undertake a preliminary review of the single spine pay policy, including cost implications, and advise government on addressing these issues. The review should be aligned to the next budget cycle. Thereafter, government should develop a roadmap of the implementation of the revised pay policy. To ensure sustainability in compensation payments, the social partners must work together to agree on a medium-term framework for adjustment of public sector pay and to work collectively to improve revenue mobilization. 12. Government should resource the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to build its capacity to perform its functions for pay administration in the public service more efficiently and effectively. The social partners should work with government to review the legislative framework for pay administration in the public sector to support the reforms towards addressing issues including salaries inequities and irregularities, weak link between pay to productivity and sustainability of the payroll.
Government has launched a fully digitalized national assay laboratory at the Precious Minerals and Marketing Company to deal with gold scammers. This will help governments to independently verify the amount of gold exports in real time and ensure that the ones transported from Ghana to other parts of the world are of high quality. Speaking at the launch of the laboratory, Vice President Dr. Baumia said the move, which has been in the works since 2017, will also eliminate corrupt practices in the sector. Latif Idris has the rest of the story.
On his part, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, who was excited about today's launch, said the digitalized assay system or laboratory will make it difficult, if not impossible, for gold scammers to undertake their underhand dealings.
Digitalization has now made it possible to generate assay certificates which have unique security features. These unique features will make the certificates difficult to forge by gold scammers to facilitate their dubious schemes. Digitalization has also now made it possible to monitor in real time gold exports passing through the assay laboratory. The President will also have access to the data The Minister of Finance will also have access to the data. The Commissioner General of the GRA, the taxman, will also have access to the data. And yours truly will also have access to the data. This is major by all accounts. This is really major, we can tell. And because whenever you have transparency, you are able to kill corruption. When you shine a light on darkness, because before it was, you never knew. So you now know on a timely basis. It cannot be changed by any players because everybody gets the data at the same time.
Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Jinapor on his part believes that this is a game changer and will help Ghana to trace every ounce of gold that is exported from the mine sites to their final destinations.
This is not the end. We have already, under the Ghana Land Restoration and Small-Scale Mining Project, commenced the processes of upgrading the National Assay Laboratory and have it fitted with a fire assay equipment to enable PMMC undertake fire assaying, which the experts say is the most definitive and most reliable means of assaying gold.
Dr. Bawumia announced that the government digitalization drive will spread to all sectors.
Authorities at the Akati College of Education say their decision to transform the institution into a center of excellence in the teacher education in Africa is on course. They want stakeholder collaboration to achieve this feat. Principal John Sedo has been addressing the 2022-23 matriculants.
The purpose of the matriculation ceremony, which is the first ceremony, is to receive the freshmen and women who were in the 2021-2022 academic year into Akachi College of Education, making them full members of the college and as persons in statutory, in other words, as persons under the guardianship of their tutors and administrators.
Out of 2,152 applicants, only 369 were admitted to the Akachi College of Education. 62% of this number are males, while the rest 38 are females, hereby making the school miss its gender parity policy by recording a decline of 25% in female admissions compared to last year's figures. The matriculants would read a 4-year Bachelor of Education program with upper primary and junior high school options. They form the third batch of students admitted under the affiliation with the University of Education, Winneba. The principal, John Sedo, entreated the students to take their academic work seriously and desist from spending too much time on social media.
We are excited to be affiliated to the university mainly because our vision of being the center of excellence and our programs aligned perfectly with that of the university. The college is ready to support you to succeed despite a number of challenges that we are faced with. As you would have noticed, quite recently we have committed some effort to ensure that internet access is active in all corners of the college to enable you access electronic materials to support your learning. I encourage you to use it purposefully for studies rather than chatting. I wish to conclude my speech by reminding you that your main goal of coming to the college is to study hard and graduate as successful professional teachers. The college requires the support of both the students and the staff to be successful in its strides to become the center of excellence in teacher education in Ghana and beyond.
The director of the Institute of Teacher Education and Continuing Professional Development of the University of Education, Winneba, Professor Dande George Dampson, implored the students to be guided by the mission and vision of the college.
As you have been formally and officially admitted into Akati College of Education, you are also reminded that you are regarded as students of University of Education, and you are also accorded all the privileges given to students at the University of Education. My dear students, I therefore admonish you, all of you, here today to be proactive, committed, and time-conscious in everything that you do. I also want to remind you that you are individuals. You came here as individuals, and you will leave here as individuals. Always be guided by the mission and vision of this great college, and success will surely be yours. As I conclude my message, remember and imbibe in yourself the ethics of this college. Be trained as professionals. Have excellence. Be morally inclined, be fortitude, and above all, have teamwork.
The matriculants will graduate with certificates awarded by the University of Education, Winneba, after successfully completing the 4-year program. Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews, Akachi.
Finding addresses and locations in Western countries is easy using the Google map. However, poor road layouts and informal settlements, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, make it difficult to do the same. Fortunately, the problem is being addressed with the matriculation app developed by the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. There's more on Tech Thursday.
With the lack of mapping for a lot of areas, including schools, market and hospitals in Ghana, many residents resort to the use of informal names. KNUST researchers therefore took advantage of address points of landmarks in local communities and trotro services to generate data for the app's development. Dr. Gift Dumeda is project lead.
Matriculation was developed to make sure that people can have easy access to their local services, be it a clinic, police service, fire service, or a shopping. And all of these information are included in matriculation. And we also make sure that it has a local context by incorporating the local Twi language in it. Now, the Twi language allows us access for people who are not familiar with English, so that they can use the Twi to be able to access their navigation. Currently, the matriculation app can be used in 2 modes. One, when you have data, and then a second case where you do not have mobile data. And matriculation can be currently downloaded. You can go and Google matriculation at matriculation-gh.com, and you'll be able to download matriculation. Alternatively, you can also go to Google Play Store and search for matriculation.
The researchers say they will soon release the iOS version of the app. Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Debra.
Spoken in the central region, it is one of the oldest languages in Ghana, and yet many of its natives can't read, speak or write it. Through a radio show, a group of people who look like the last generation of Effutu speakers are trying to drum home the message of its extinction. For Ghana Month Today, Justice Bedu traveled to Winneba to meet those behind the show. Here's his report.
Welcome to Winneba, Effutu's capital. It is the biggest town here, a historic fishing city originally called Simpa.
Radio Peace, 88.9 megahertz FM stereo.
These panelists are on a radio show to remind people about their language, the Effutu language, and to ask them to speak it.
Some of us who were even lucky to meet grandparents who were talking to our parents in the Effutu language, even suffered before we can learn the language.
Esther Nyako has been doing this program for more than 20 years. She's one of the few in her generation who still speaks Effutu in Winneba.
There are some people from Effutu who even are excuse my language, I can say, shun away from the language. They don't want to even speak the language when you meet them.
During the time I was in primary school, if you don't know, when you speak Effutu, the teachers have made some necklace with this seashells. They will put rope through all, then create it with a chain. So when they hear that you are speaking Effutu language, they just hang it in your neck to tell people to hoot at you that you are speaking Effutu language in school.
Simple debi lapa Effutu abra adam afadon owo na we sante bene esante amudwo rane.
The Effutu language is one of Ghana's oldest, spoken by a group known to be part of the Gwans, who are acknowledged as the Aborigines of Ghana.
The language has died. So when you ask someone in Effutu dialogue, in fact, you won't get even about 6 or 7 people to understand the language. There's no books for the children to learn about the language. It is all the time fancy, English and fancy. And therefore, when the child go to school and they speak the Effutu language, people will laugh. They will laugh at the children.
The Effutu language, like many Ghanaian languages, is on the brink. And the last generation of people who speak it are racing against time to try saving it. Justice Baidu, JoyNews, Winneba.
And that's it for the AMUs. For more news, you can log into myjoyonline.com. I am Mapito Sibidi.
Thank you for staying with us. Let's get into the papers now, and we're joined by Selom Branti, a policy analyst, of course, with Imani Africa as well. We're going to be talking about a number of matters, but let me say a very good morning to you. Mr. Branti, a very good morning to you, sir. Okay, so you'd have to unmute for us so we can hear your beautiful voice.
Oh, sorry about that.
Right.
Yeah, so very good morning to you and your listeners.
Great. And how good is the morning when you hear that LPG prices are up as well? It appears every morning you wake up to something that is going up. It's not God who is going up, it's the prices from fuel products, of course, LPG, one of the derivatives as well. And then we have food prices, transportation, fares. Let me take your thoughts on that, because it's been another week since we had an interaction. So fuel prices have not only broken the 8, they have gone even further, 8.29 at some fuel pumps. I'm yet to check what I purchased to find out what it's like this morning. But when you look at the composite of fuel prices, LPG, everything going up, and what do you make of it? And what do you think the way forward is?
It's a massive nightmare for a lot of people. I think quite a lot of people are not pleased with the situation we are in.
Right.
A lot of it is triggered by outside forces. It's not something that we can control. Very few governments at this stage can control the move. Just before you went on air, I'm sitting here with my brother-in-law, and he showed me that Brent crude has risen to $116 a barrel.
Right.
So
from 111 yesterday, it's got to 116. We had Duncan Amwa in the studio yesterday say that, of COPEC, of course, suggests that we could hit a 120 in the coming days and weeks, and it's already at 116.
I think it should be days or hours, because, as the situation escalates and as the bombardments in Ukraine continue, and as a lot of things are cascading, taking over territories in Crimea, whatever.
Yeah.
All those things are making the situation even more dire. The issue here is a lot of us in Africa, for example, are very vulnerable because we import wheat, we import crude, we import almost everything that is not a staple that is produced here. So it means that we are really at the point where the war is affecting us and it's going to affect our lifestyles. I believe the best thing we can do is probably just to adjust. So it means less expenditure on transport, stay at home as much as possible, maybe do more Zoom calls. It's not a situation that anybody would want, ideally. And I am not jealous or I don't envy anybody in government right now because most people will be trying to seek explanations from them, which will not be forthcoming because everybody is new to this situation. It's almost kind of like the Gulf War in 1991 when a similar situations occurred. But this time, the global interest and the fear of even a World War III is crazier. Our incomes aren't increasing, so we are actually in a point of austerity. So for most Ghanaians, we should just tighten our belts. There's really not much we can do at this stage.
But how do you tighten your belts in such economic times? I mean, how far can you tighten your belt? You tighten to a point, and maybe your waist might, you might face some problems because the belt is far too tight. You know how uncomfortable it is when you tighten your belt to the point where you see that you can't tighten further, but maybe for some reason you must tighten it.
The women know it's better because they wear corsets, so their whole stomach is tightened.
That's a whole. So you can imagine all of us, maybe men who are not used to wearing corsets, donning corsets just because of the economic times. That is kind of like the situation we find ourselves in. And yesterday, I just want to get this to you. So I was also here interacting with Bongo MP Edward Bawa. And he actually filed this. I'm just going to read out. He filed an urgent question on the floor of Parliament, and he sent me a copy. It says, so text of question, that Minister for Finance Ministry is doing, what the Minister for Finance is doing to slow down the increments of petroleum product prices at pumps with respect to imposed taxes or levies on petroleum products and the depreciation of the cedi. So these are issues, Selom, that we really have to deal with. The depreciation of the cedi. You are fully aware that our currency currently is the worst in Africa. I mean, we've been the best. I always say that we shouldn't be hasty in painting certain pictures. But right now, it is the worst in Africa. We've lost, some 7.6% value to the dollar. Then we have the bit about the taxes and levies, and some have said some of them can go. But others too have said that it's impractical. Where government finds itself now, economically speaking, it can't do anything about that. So in all of these dynamics, with an e-levy hoping to be added, and with the price stabilization not being used, right, with deregulation not working, what do we do? I mean, there are things to be done. You can't just say that, oh, it's out of our hands, and so ordinary Ghanaian, you're simply going to have to suffer it. For how long?
It's a big question. The issue here is possibly the world events now make it such that this wouldn't be a smart time to introduce the e-levy. Absolutely not.
It wouldn't be a smart time to introduce the e-levy?
No. I mean, considering that the cost of living has increased dramatically over the past couple of months, this would not be the best time to try and add any more levy. People, imagine if you live at Oyarifa or Adenta and you are going to, let's say, Circle, you work at Circle every day. Somebody told me just yesterday or 2 days ago that the trotro fare is now a total of about 10 or 12 cedis, depending on where you live. So if the average worker has to spend a total of 10 or 12 cedis just on transport and maybe 7 cedis on food, that is roughly 20 cedis a day. For a week, that's 100 cedis a week. So in a month, that's 400 cedis. And if your pay is around 1,200 cedis, you're not talking about weekends, you're not talking about family rent, etc. This is not the time to add onto that burden and under the guise that the person isn't paying tax, because at this rate, the war and the escalation is such that it's not going to let up. And therefore, it's going to be very difficult for people to make ends meet. And you see, for those in government, for example, I really don't know what they can do at this moment, because it's not like we have any reserves anywhere that we can fall on.
Right.
We will just have to have lifestyle tips, maybe, and then hope and pray that some kind of investments come in the economy.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we have, a segment that we've started called The Living Standards and series, of course. And we go out there, interact with people, like how they are managing, basically, in these harsh economic times. People are saying, look, if I used to go to the salon 4 times a month, I'm going to cut it down to 2 or maybe 1. If I was eating twice a day, now maybe I'll manage 1 solid meal in a day, maybe lunch, and that is it. No breakfast, no dinner, and all of that. I mean, these are mechanisms people are using, but you ask yourself, how far can we be stretched? Because look, LPG is up. Fuel prices are up at the pumps. Food prices are up. Transportation fares are up. Everything, practically everything is changing. But mind you, at the same time, we know that even public sector workers, recently we had the teachers unions and others, the transport unions complaining about, the cost of living and asking for a cost of living allowance. So when you look at them, you realize that there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You're being bombarded from every angle.
Yeah. So the best we can do is, trim our lifestyles. There's, of course, some industries are going to suffer, like the recreation and entertainment industry.
Right.
I believe they are going to be one of the first to be hit. It's sad that after COVID, when the economies are just recovering, that sector is going to be hit very hard. But then the truth of the matter is that we should all be in survival mode right now, because some of these effects are going to last for months, and we should just brace ourselves, because with the monitoring the news, especially with the world events, I don't see it being let up. And then the sad thing is that we already had our problems before this problem came in.
Right.
And so our situation is even more dire, because it's quite a pessimistic view. As much as I'm an optimist as a person, it's we just have to, like you said, you probably have to cook all your meals one day so that you save on gas. You probably have to iron all your clothes at one time so you don't have to be racking up electricity bills. We all have to be frugal. That's the only way we are going to survive this. I mean, this war is affecting all of us, not in just the way that Ukrainians and Russians are suffering, but then also it's affecting us in terms of our lifestyle and everything else. And who knows how it's going to escalate going forward. So we all just have to tighten our belts. That's the only thing that seems feasible at this stage. We cannot ask for more, and we cannot feel entitled to more when the whole world is at a stage where we are on our knees, basically. So
that feeds into another conversation that has come to the fore in recent times. It has to do with those who have spoken about the probability or possibility of these events casting their shadow and culminating in maybe something nobody wants, a coup d'etat, a military putsch. And why are we bringing it up? Because we saw what happened with Oliver Barker-Vormawor and how he is being treated even currently. But his wording as well, the things he put out there, some have said very problematic. Then there is the issue of Professor Raymond Atuguba as well. I'm sure you followed the Solidaire Ghana confab and what he said. And to be fair, he said that nobody wants a coup. That's how he premised his wording on this matter, but said that, but there are ingredients that could culminate into that, and that we seem to have them here. The other problem to look at is that in the midst of all that we are facing in our sub-region, other countries have fallen, and you know of the domino effect. So he is saying here that your economy is staggering, it is desperately broke. If you don't do something, it would be fodder for those who would want to, take over the reins of government in terms of military rule. And some have really lashed out at him. I heard from the likes of Inshiaeso MP, Dr. Stephen Amwa, very bitter about those comments. I've heard others. I've also heard, Katie Hammond, I believe the Asokwa MP yesterday, giving him a tongue lashing. Do you feel it is fair, or are we burying our heads in the sand and failing to see the reality and to forestall it? After all,
the narrative
you want to know certain things so that you prevent them, right?
Yeah, the narrative is partisan. I can tell you for a fact that even all those guys, although they say all these things in public with full bravado, they also understand the feelings that are going on. And, you know, if you did interviews in any market, Medina market, Malata market, Kaneshi market, wherever, the sentiments are not very different from what Professor Raymond and Oliver are saying. The difference here is that they would probably put it in more flowery language.
Right.
We have to understand that this stance of everything is going well, nothing is wrong, we are managing the situation, it's not washing, and it's a bit dishonest. In fact, it's not a bit dishonest, it's very dishonest and disrespectful for people who are privileged to be getting Article 71 type perks for their lifestyles, to be looking down on the ordinary Ghanaian who suffers to get 1,500 cedis to feed his family, and talk down on them and think that from their high horse or from their high point of privilege on that ivory tower, they can discount the views of others just because they think those people do not matter. These are the same people that they go to when they are trying to get votes to be elected into these same positions that they hold themselves high on. But they are not being accountable to the people, and they are not being sympathetic to them. This is a time of uncertainty and austerity. The last thing you would want to do is to make people think that you are better off than them and therefore you can talk down to them. This is a time to give assurances to people. This is a time to empathize with people. This is the time to ask people how best we should all come together and face some of these crises. But to pretend that there is no crisis, to pretend that everything is okay, to pretend that you still have the situation under control when it is quite obvious that the horse is running out of the stable, only increases distrust. And when that distrust rises to a certain point, especially when there is ego involved and hubris, and you are being intransigent in your narrative, then you are actually putting the recipe together for any kind of civil unrest. Okay. And that is the truth of the matter. In every civilization or in every nation state where you've had this kind of behavior, it has never ended well for the ruling elite class. And history should be our teacher. History should guide us. Okay. We have an opportunity to keep everybody hoping. We have an opportunity to keep everybody being positive in spite of the negatives around us. Right. The last thing you want to do is to shut people's voices down just because you are afraid. The fear is justified. But then we must look beyond the fear and look at what unites us and not keep that line of division expanding to the point where people are disillusioned enough to take matters into their own hands.
Right. Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. New boards for state-owned media. Professor Olivia Frimpong Kwapong heads Graphic. Digitalized assay lab signals more gains from gold exports. Then there is U-Start kicks off April. Pilot successful. That's according to Ofori Atta, Ken Ofori Atta. There's also Gender Ministry readies for International Women's Day. That's on page 20. And of course, today is World Hearing Day, by the way. And then book on BJ Darosha launched. When you go to other pages, the international page, open borders to Africans, UN urges Ukraine's neighbors, and then Guinean group threatens demonstrations if junta stays in power. There's also the bit about the e-levy. There's a bit of an editorial there. Page 7 of the paper. To introduce or not to. All those stories in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's look at the Ghanaian Times. It says, differ but don't undermine our democracy. Kojo Ponkroma saying that. Story on page 7. Let's take a quick swipe at it. And it says, the government has called on political actors to feel free to differ on national policies, but refrain from undermining the country's democracy. Minister of Information Kojo Ponkroma, who conveyed this in response to comments by the Dean of the University of Ghana Law School, Professor Raymond Atuguba, said, while the administration had no problem with people expressing divergent views on policies and national developments, it abhors attempts by some to lace their commentary with anti-democratic comments and insinuations that undermined the country's democracy. So interesting perspectives from both ends. I was just discoursing on that with Selom Brantier. What is... how far is going too far, and how divergent is divergent? Well, the views will continue to pour in. We just hope that the right things will be done, because no one wants to be in the situation of Burkina Faso, Mali, or Guinea. Absolutely nobody.
Oh, what's wrong there?
Right. President's Independence Day Awards, 36 students decorated. And maybe just a quick one to run by you. So we've heard from the information minister, who is saying that, yes, speak your mind, we can tolerate divergent views, but don't go overboard with them. That's the, and that is in respect, Selom, of the very matter we were discussing a short while ago, Professor Tuguba's statements. The Daily Guide newspaper, prosperity will not come overnight. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. And Supreme Court bounces Kumanga, pictured there, Oliver Barker-Vomawa. There's also ex-PPA boss's account details emerge. You can check the paper for those details. And government replies Atuguba and Ku dreams. It appears this Raymond Atuguba thing has got a lot of blues, at least from the ruling administrations, and all of us ought to be concerned. But is this making a mountain out of a molehill? What do you think? What do you think, Selom? The sort of reaction, the reaction we are seeing. Oh, you shouldn't even be mentioning such things. Just a quick one at the reaction. Very quick, 30 seconds. Selom, are you with us? All right. I think Selom is still... okay, so you'll have to unmute. Right.
Okay, so there was a bit of a disruption in the signal. So you were talking about the information minister.
Yes. So the information minister is basically, he's also joined the fray of those responding. He says, yes, you can have divergent views, but don't use that to maybe do propaganda and lean towards, talk of a coup and all of that. How far is too far when it comes to talking about a coup? How far is being practical or impractical? Very quickly on that.
Yes, there is freedom of speech, and then there is also, ability of people to incite others.
Right.
In the case of someone like Oliver, for example, I think they've been making a mountain out of a molehill, and it looks kind of like trying to get a poster boy to take the flak for all the negativity that is brewing up. And unfortunately, they are trying to make him kind of like, I don't know what word to use, but kind of like a scapegoat, that if you try this kind of nonsense, this is what is going to happen. But then the problem here is, where do you stop when it comes to people's individual liberties and what they have the right to say?
Right.
And really whether they have the ability to, for example, that he is somebody who has been engaging with the law. He's somebody who's been engaging with the police, etc. And yes, he made incendiary statements, but the statements themselves do not declare intentions of him doing something of sort. And it is just like some of the past who are currently incendiary, the person his liberties because of this, and the kind of legal gymnastics going on only serve to make that distrust even worse.
Right.
believe that a government should drop a stance of thing is good. Things are hard for people. And the more you decide to hush down the critics, the bolder they will become. That's the truth of the matter. Right. Instead of having this stubborn approach, everything is going well in agriculture, everything is going well in everywhere else, we are doing this, we are doing that. We should be mature. Our politicians should be mature. They should listen. We are having hard times. People are making life and death decisions based on 50 cedis. This is not a time to come and flaunt your wealth and come and tell people you've cut this down by 20%, so we should hail you. No, there should be far more pragmatic, practical steps. That display of opulence in the face of growing poverty should stop. We should respect people. Right. I think what the basis of all of this, or the bottom line, is that the current crop of politicians feel super privileged and do not respect the average Ghanaian and his opinions. Right. They do not respect it because you are not part of that establishment. You are not part of the boys' club. You are not part of the inner circle, and therefore what you say doesn't matter because we are the ones in charge and we are the ones who have a clear lane on what to do, and we know what we are doing. But if what you are doing or what you say you are doing is not reflecting in the lives of people in a way where they are aspirational, right? Some of these sentiments are not only just going to start brewing, they will spread. And that is the truth of the matter. People on Facebook have been alluding to so many things like the famous story about Princess Mary.
The famous story of whom?
Marie Antoinette. The things attributed to him that if the people say they don't have bread, why don't you give them cake? She thought that the people indeed ate cake as much as she did. She did not know that even bread was very hard for them to get. I think that there's a saying in Chida, if you are sitting somewhere and you do not
a bit of a challenge with Selim Brantia's connection, but
you do not identify with those on the ground. You begin to forget. Ghana. Can you get me now?
I can hear you. Just wrap on that point. We've been losing you intermittently, but just quickly wrap on that point. Can you hear me, Selim? All right. At least what I took from a lot of what you said, atiye ma erefie, and so sometimes when you're living well, you become oblivious to the fact that others may not be living at the level that you are. The final newspaper, as we try to reconnect with Selim and wrap up, the business finder, I should say, moved to curb smuggling in gold exports, digitized national assay lab unveiled. There's UStart rollout, GEA, others ready, and COVID-19 trust fund. We've been talking about COVID-19 funding in recent times. We'll find out how that process goes in Parliament for accountability when it comes to our COVID-19 spending. But COVID-19 trust fund disburses over 79% of funds. That's the Business Finder newspaper. I believe I can hear you now, Selim Brantia. Maybe you can wrap on that point if you can hear me.
Yeah, I mean, so I think what we need to have.
Still a bit tricky with Selim Brantia.
Respect. Whilst the government information minister, etc., respect, it's reciprocal. If you do not respect the same people who put you in power, you should not expect them to.
All right. Okay, if you don't respect the people who put you in power, and you were making a point there, I insinuate, I think that you were going to talk about the fact that if you don't respect the people in power, then there could be, some results emanating from that or consequences. Let's do the National Voice newspaper, not a paper you would see every day, but the story that stands out: government plans to abolish deregulation policy as cabinet begins discussions on subsidies for petroleum consumers. And that is a very important point to make. There's also the bit about government remaining focused. That's according to Dr. Bawumia. On page 3 of the paper, stop beating war drums, Razak Kojo Opoku warns NDC's Raymond Atuguba. It's interesting in this country, though. One thing I've noticed, once you serve with a political party, even in the past, it is assumed that everything you say is partisan. But is that really the case? I've heard people take the learned professor on in respect of, oh, he's a lawyer, oh, he's a professor, oh, he teaches constitutional law and all of that. But on the other hand, I'm speaking in terms of academic license, academic freedoms, and the freedom of speech. Does that take away what his thinking is and what he genuinely feels, especially as he is not suggesting that that should be what should be done, but that, these are the ingredients. You need to work on these things. I think as a country, we ought to be tolerant. I agree with Kojo Ponkroma. Have divergent views, but don't try to trample on our democracy, because in the end, it doesn't work in favor of anybody. But let's not muzzle people. Let people have a say. There's that story. I'm just looking for it. The bit I read out earlier about deregulation. And it appears they didn't mention the page it was on, and you have to search practically every page of the National Voice to get it. But I finally found it on page 10. It says Cabinet has begun discussions on possible subsidies for petroleum consumers as the rising cost of fuel prices in the country bite hard at consumers. According to Deputy Minister for Energy, Andre Japamersa, although it would come at a cost to the taxpayer, Cabinet is taking the necessary steps to find relief for Ghanaians. He told Joy Business that a recommendation from the National Petroleum Authority and the ministry had been submitted through the Ministry of Finance for consideration. And of course, we know about the petroleum prices. How this is going to pan out, work out, shape up, only God knows. Salam, maybe just to wrap with you on 2 key points. Government is planning to abolish the deregulation policy when it comes to our petroleum products. And the Deputy Minister for Energy, Andre Japamersa, has been talking about that. What is your quick take on that in the midst of all of what we are seeing, Selom?
Well, I think that it should not be hastily done, to be honest, because once we start subsidizing it, then the accountability process becomes also murky.
Right.
We have had situations in the past where we've racked up huge debts that are still not being paid, with TOR and the rest. And in light of this murky situation, is the deregulation that has actually put some sanity into the system and prevented the government from taking in more debt. This situation is universal. We are not the only ones bearing the brunt of the high fuel costs, etc. And therefore, in the bid to subsidize, what is the payoff, or what are we sacrificing to have this done? I think that if anything at all, we should focus possibly on domestic LP gas, for example, which is very crucial for poor families, etc. But to do a full-scale thing in terms of intervening in the supply-demand process as it is, I think it is something that will be a quick fix, but will have disastrous consequences in the future. So we probably should not jump into it very hastily. And if we are going to do that, there should be far broader consultations. And this government does not have a track record of having good consultations with stakeholders as far as their decisions and policy decisions are concerned. They are unilateral, and they always end up in disaster. And I would be very skeptical if this doesn't also go that way, especially if they do not consult broadly. In a bipartisan manner, in an all-embracing manner. If they decide to do this unilaterally, I'm afraid that the consequences that we will have to bear will be far more even egregious than the current dispensation.
So another disaster could be looming if the right consultations are not made. But Salam, good morning. A very good morning to you. You do enjoy your day, and we thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Pleasure. Have a nice day, and let's all keep safe. Let's all keep safe.
Very important. Anyway, that was Salam Brantier, policy analyst. He is with Imani Africa. Up next, we bring you sports. And definitely, we're going to be painting the picture of Roman Abramovich and his Chelsea, what is happening there. When we return, don't you forget the big stories. We have our guests delving into all of them. And that will be after sports. Do stay.
Good morning, everyone. You're welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. The Vice President of the country, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has revealed his outfit is engaging the Ghana Football Association and the National Sports Authority to ensure that e-ticketing is made available for football fans who want to access Ghana Premier League games as well as other competitions under the umbrella of the Ghana Football Association. According to him, it provides comfort if football spectators can sit at their homes and purchase tickets.
Government is willing to support any institution, public or private, which intends on implementing digital initiatives for efficiency. Actually, we've engaged the Ghana Sports Authority, National Sports Authority, because we need to digitize football tickets to enter the stadium. Because it takes a long time for us to, you should be able to sit at home and buy your tickets and go and enter the stadium without any kululu at the gate. So we are going to do exactly that, and you will see it in the next few months. We will all start using our phones to buy tickets to go and watch football in the country, inshallah.
And there's probably the possibility of boxing fans also having to purchase their tickets via e-ticketing. On March 6th, there's going to be the Rumble Freedom that will be happening at the Bukom Boxing Arena, where George Ashe will be in action. Promoter of the fight, Alex Ntiamwa, has been speaking. But before that, let's hear from George Ashe, who has been speaking about the trajectory of his career and how he feels that he could have done better, but is very hopeful. The journey is not over yet.
It's a game of boxing. Boxing, if you don't black, you can't move forward. So I think he's talking too much, and I think the ring will decide that night. Me, only talk I'm talking is yes, is to relax. We don't black in boxing. We fight in boxing.
But the bragging, the bragging is because he knows he's a confident boxer. He's undefeated. He knows that he can do it. So that's why he's.
This is the first defeat.
This will be his first defeat.
First defeat.
I see.
Seriously.
I see. Now, tell me about your career and where you at the stage you're at now. You've seen your ups and your downs, and I was asking your promoter a few minutes ago. Tell me about what runs through your mind these days, especially as you're building up to a big fight like this. This is going to win you, if you're able to win, will win you the IBF Continental Africa title, and it will get you up in the ratings.
In boxing, you can start early, but you can finish. In boxing, you can start now, but you can finish. But in boxing, everything you have to pray to God that He should give you a good way. And this is, I know this is my time for now. The hour has come, so I think I can do something for Ghana this time.
These two boxers are the topmost junior welterweights that we have in Ghana. George Ashe is number 1 and Robert Quay is number 2. Actually, Robert Quay is undefeated. He has called the bluff of Ashe for a long time when Ashe was at the lightweight. He was also at the lightweight. But Robert Quay moved to the junior welterweight, and he won the interim WBO Africa. Then he couldn't defend it, so he lost it by way of it was cheap from him because he couldn't defend the title. But he is the current UBU international champion at the junior welterweight division. And you know, the fans want to see this fight. The fans within Kolegono, Bukom, Mamplobi and Itwarons, the typical boxing fan base, they want to see this fight because they see the potential in Robert Kwe, and they know Ashi is one tough nut to crack. And so that is the conversation within the locals. And as a promoter, we always at box office want to bring the best to the people.
Let's do something on European football and specifically on Chelsea. It began as rumors, but it is finally a reality if you're a Chelsea fan. As the owner of the club, Roman Abramovich, says he's planning to sell the club. In a statement on the Premier League club's website, the businessman said that it was an incredibly difficult decision to make, which pains him. He added that he wants the club to be in a better shape until he leaves. Now let's take a look at the statement, as you can see on your screen right now. It says that I would like to address the speculation in the media over the past few days in relation to my ownership of Chelsea FC. That's a statement from Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich. That was the beginning of that statement on the club's website yesterday. And it said that, as I've stated before, I've always taken decisions with the club's best interest at heart. In the current situation, I have therefore taken the decision to sell the club, as I believe this is in the best interest of the club, the fans, the employees, as well as the club's sponsors and partners. And the statement continued to add that the sale of the club will not be fast-tracked, but will follow due process. I will not be asking for any loans to be repaid. This has never been about business nor money for me, but it's about the pure passion for the game and the club. And the surprising thing is that the club owes Roman Abramovich about 1.6 billion euros, or pounds rather, but he says he wants all that to go to the club. He said, moreover, I have instructed my team to set up charitable foundation where all net proceeds from the sale will be donated. The foundation will be for the benefit of victims of the war in Ukraine. This includes providing critical funds towards the urgent and immediate needs of victims, as well as supporting the long-term work of recovery. Furthermore, the statement added that, please know that this has been an incredibly difficult decision to make, and it pains me to part with this club in this manner. However, I do believe this is in the best interest of the club. I hope that I'll be able to visit Stamford Bridge one last time to say goodbye to all of you in person. It has been a privilege of a lifetime to be part of Chelsea FC, and I'm proud of all our joint achievements. And under the tenure of Roman Abramovich, Chelsea have won every single trophy they have participated. The recent one was the FIFA Club World Cup, where they won after beating Palmeiras 2-1. And the final part of the statement said, Chelsea Football Club and its supporters will always be in my heart. Thank you, Roman. That's the statement from Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich. He bought the club from Kembase in 2003 and brought in Roman Abramovich to replace former Leicester City boss, who led Manchester City to win the Premier League. And since then, he's won the Premier League, he's won the FA Cup, he's won the UEFA Champions League, he's won the Carabao Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup, and the Europa League as well. That's the story of Chelsea.
Let's get on with it as we hit our big stories for today. Joining us, we'll be, conversing right before I introduce the guest joining me this morning. We'll be talking about, the hike in fuel prices, LPG also affected. We'll talk about what has been happening on the floor of Parliament, how to bring some unity even in diversity on the floor of Parliament. We'll be talking about that latest issue to do with the urgent question that has been filed in respect of the finance minister coming to Parliament to give a briefing on what can be done to regulate or control skyrocketing fuel prices. We'll also be talking about government suspending the expansion of the school feeding program, bringing you different dynamics. Joining us for the discussion, Dr. Dixon Adomako Kisi. He is Member of Parliament, Anya Sotuom. Doc. Hello. Aha. How are things? I've started on there. How are things at your end? And how are things for your constituency? When was the last time you went there?
I live in the constituency.
Oh, you live in the constituency?
Yes,
right.
please.
So you see daily what is happening with your constituents and all of that. What is the picture there?
Well, first of all, let me commend you. In fact, I've been following you more closely now, and your program is wonderful. I like the fact that it's very fair and balanced, and I think you should continue to do that.
Thank you.
It's very important.
Thank you.
Very important. So I'll take the opportunity to also greet a few friends, Archibald Kobina, Honorable MC Mohammed Bashir, and then my chairman, Albert Sam. We've been working hard, doing some local politics, and it's taken a lot of our time, but it's all for the improvement and development of the constituency. And personally, many are weeping and crying because of the challenges, which is worldwide, and which has been worsened even more so by actions taken by our good friend Putin. So I think the brunt of post-COVID issues and in addition, the economic challenges worldwide, more specifically currently with the energy sector increments, which is not, let me say, peculiar to just Ghana.
Right.
And that is one key thing that I know my good friends on the other side of governance would agree to, that this is not necessarily a Ghanaian conundrum. This is a worldwide issue, and for once I would hope that they would at least admit to that, unlike COVID, which seems to be almost shaped like an MPP issue. I hope this one is so real, so close to all of us. And we also have to come to terms with the fact that worldwide prices, we are not insulated. And as the hikes go up worldwide, we as a country, though a producer in small volume and quantity, have been impacted. Yeah, so these are my few opening remarks, and I'll leave the rest of the time to you as we proceed.
Okay, so the picture in your constituency, but I wanted to find out as well. I mean, do any people come to you? I know what it means like to be a member of parliament. People are coming to you for practically everything. I remember once a member of parliament told me in private that, look, it's so bad that someone wanted to put up a building and the person came to me that, oh, Honorable, help me with the foundation, help me with blocks and stuff. In these biting economic times, do people come to you for the momo, for the, what is it like?
I mean, in all fairness to them, times are tough, and everybody is looking for avenues for solutions, and unfortunately, in our country, legislative members are seen as a bankroll of some sort, and everybody seems to want to put us in the role of Jesus Christ, who changed a few loaves of bread to a lot. and unfortunately, as Roxanne would clearly state, we are unable to do magic to that quantum, but we do our very best.
Right.
And when you come with an issue, at least, I'll do my
So you've been helping out. What are some of the issues people come to you with?
For me, whether fortunately or unfortunately, I have a hospital in the community.
Right.
So I'm literally now almost a government hospital.
Wow.
And do a lot of social services when it comes to the health aspect.
Wow.
Medication-wise, reduction of medical bills. It's killing me in the pocket. But
yeah, it could actually put you out of business because you're a private entity.
Absolutely, but you can't turn people away unless very necessary to refer them. But these are the realities. Those who do farming also might be giving away their plantain and whatnot. It's everybody and their local. But in all of it, I think that we need to gradually embolden and strengthen the governmental institutions so that we don't end up taking up work that's supposed to be done by like social services, work that's supposed to be done by, you know, revenue generation entities. And that is one of the problems I have.
Those are the systemic failures that are leading to, because ordinarily, they shouldn't be, you know, coming to
we shouldn't be the first point of call.
Right.
And I would hope that at some point in time, we can both agree to some system that provides for our people that is not dependent on us.
Okay.
So that people would rather go to, as it is, the social services office. Even in the US, they queue for these things.
Yeah. Food stamps and others.
Food stamps and these things. And it is not the legislative man's work to be receiving people and handling that aspect. Ours is to really focus on the rules of the game in the country. And
I get the picture there, and we're all feeling it at different levels. It appears you're feeling it at a bit of a higher level because you're a member of parliament. But I want to find out from the member of parliament for South Dai, who joins us here, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo. Where's all?
My brother Akakwe.
Good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Nice.
Are you also Mr. Moneybags? Because it appears once they hear MP, oh, this might get money. You get money. But you, the way you're dressed this morning.
I'm a rural MP.
So now there are segregations between the MPs.
He's an urbanized MP. I am a very rural MP.
And you don't have a hospital?
I do.
Oh, you do have a hospital?
Not a personal hospital.
Okay. Yes. Because he owns a private facility.
He's a medic.
Right.
He's a medic. He has his own
private practice.
Private practice,
yes.
But by way of private clinic.
Yes.
You know, I also have my own small private law firm.
Hey.
So,
okay.
But I'm a rural MP.
Very small. But what's the picture in your constituency? Very briefly, in maybe a minute. How have people been reacting? What do they come to?
He's an urbanized MP, and so I think that, and because he's also ordinary resident in the constituency, his situation will be on daily basis. Mine is markedly different from that. When I visit every weekend, almost, that's when the demands pour in.
Right.
And then also they pour in on via the phone.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things people come to you for?
Payment of hospital bills. Rent. Helping people build their houses. So you support with cement, you support with sand.
Blocks.
So when a colleague told you that somebody approached him to support him to build with the foundation, he was telling you no lie. And let me proceed. We pay school fees. We pay maintenance of students.
Married.
When you pay school fees, that's on the end. When the person is in school, we maintain them. They tell you they can't survive over the weekend. They need 200. Even teachers, salaries are still delayed. Teachers have been testing for support. Nurses do the same. We support when there are marriages. We support when there are childbirths. Yes, we support when there are funerals. And some of
I guess outdoorings as well.
Exactly. So we support chiefs. The traditional councils, they ask for support. Sometimes they are supposed to travel to a meeting. You have to support them by way of transportation, by way of feeding.
Let me very quickly find out. How do you guys survive all of this? Because your pockets are deep, but maybe not that deep.
No, our pockets are not
You have your common fund. No, I'm saying that maybe you may have slightly deeper pockets than the ordinary average Ghanaian.
Okay.
But there's a limit to the depth of your pockets.
So everything goes. Everything goes.
So how do you manage?
When your salary comes, it goes.
I want to write a book on who helps the MP.
Yes, your salary goes. Ask him. It's the first time, I'm a second timer, but his salary doesn't stay in his pocket. It doesn't stay in mine. It goes.
It's gone before.
In fact, sometimes there are expenditures marked against it. My salary is yet to come. I think yours too is yet to come. Yeah. But there are demands, so you assure the people that don't worry, you are aware that salaries have delayed, and then when they come, I'll sort you out. So by the time the salary comes, so I've been fighting with my wife.
Your salaries, do they usually delay this long?
Well, ask Isi. Ask his and his government. There's a schedule for paying public servants.
No, it's a question I'm putting to you. So you should have been paid by now?
Yes, which we ought to have been paid.
Do you know why it has delayed?
Ask his and
I mean,
times are tough.
No.
But I won't trivialize that. But the serious issues are that there are demands on MPs. And there are also misconceptions. People think that we get free fuel. Somebody told me just last week, he was horrified to hear that we buy our own fuel. People think that we are fed every day in Parliament. We buy our own food. Ask him the number of time we bought kinky and fish to eat. So we are not fed every day like others think. We are not given free fuel every day like others think. We buy our own fuel. So the prices are biting all of us. You know, so Akapo, these are the realities on the ground. And our people, and you see, I come from a stronghold in terms of party support.
Right.
So you can't really take anybody out. Even if the person is glaringly MPP, he comes to you.
Let me pose a quick question to you, Doc. How do you think we can structure our system so that we avoid some of these things? Because like it or not, these kinds of activities breed corruption.
Correct.
True or false?
It does. And
because if they keep putting pressure on you and you know that I'm a member of Parliament, I want to retain my seat, or even if I'm not going to contest, I want to make it possible for someone from my fraternity to take over, so I must do certain things. Right. You have to pay. And if you don't, they will remove you.
Yeah, so I really think that what we ought to do as a nation, we should strengthen our social services and then have a direct linkage with the legislative arm so that we can direct people there instead of to our offices. And I really think that when the social services is improved and things are moving appropriately, then whoever comes as an MP will gradually be dependent on the social services that's working. And I really think that the American way would help us.
Right.
So that gradually we can move the people from going to the...
Detach them.
Absolutely, because... and it has to be an effort from both sides. Because, whether in MPP times or NDC times, the social services have to be appropriately given to all Ghanaians and not necessarily swayed to... Sometimes it appears that some of the benefits swing to one party line or another, depending on who's in government. And once we can also address that, because there was this claim that outboard motors that went to a particular sect, and these things are sometimes we cause these injuries to ourselves,
right?
As politicians, when there's, for instance, last year, or was it last 2 years? Yeah, last year, when the Momo alerts were coming, folks were complaining that MP people were not getting it and that NDC folks were rather getting it. These kind of, whilst there was no, I don't think the numbers tell if you're NDC or MPP, the phone numbers, because the monies went all out to everybody, and some of us even think that the MPP should have skewed to their strongholds and won more seats. These are some of the intricate things that happen. But more and more, I think we're becoming really bogged down and overwhelmed. And sometimes, you go to a funeral, make a donation of, let's say, maybe 200, but before you leave there,
you've given out way more than...
No, you spend like
way more. Is there any point where...
crazy,
this was not tabled for discussion, but these are some of the realities that you face. Are there any times where you feel you have any regrets becoming a member of Parliament when some of these things happen? Are there any times when you feel overwhelmed and you wish you hadn't even made this step?
I rather wish I could do more, because people really need the help. And that is one key thing. They really need the help, and you sort of become their messiah. And I wish I could do more. If I had more, I could do more. And that's...
But the reality is that you don't.
I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, for you, so quickly on that.
He made some very fantastic points, and for instance, about the Arbor Motor.
Right.
If I have just been given the opportunity to procure some for my constituents,
okay.
Your station came to cover it on Monday. I'm giving out 100 Arbor Motors to my fisher folks.
How did you fund that?
I'm funding it from my common fund. It's a government subsidy project, and it's been run through Ministry of Fisheries for some time. Now CODA, which is the Coastal Development.
Yes.
So, good morning, my brother Jerry Shaib, CEO of CODA. Fantastic guy. He's been supportive.
Right.
So I've given now 60. I have 40 more to give. And I also intend to give out some sewing machines to the young adolescents to put them to some trade. But the point he made, which I want to assent to it, is that government itself, by its own deliberate policy, makes social interventions. And there are a plethora of them. So I think we've gotten to a stage where some portions of that social intervention should be rolled out through the MPs. We are the direct representative of the people, and we have a stake. And so if your office is supposed to roll out such a facility and you do not, you'll be kicked out. He made a point during the NBSSI facilities for the COVID relief. The NDC is also complaining that a lot of the beneficiaries disproportionately came from the NPP. So it's interesting to hear him that its own party people are also alleging that a lot of NDC people got it. So what could we have done? And that 275 members of parliament, 20% of that could be rolled out through them. So that's a direct link to the people. Then the government itself could roll out the 80%. That's the way the common fund formula works. The common fund is supposed to go to the assembly, but by some loan design and policy, a small fraction comes to the MP where he has a direct influence, and you are accountable to the people for it. So we can design such, and look, it's done in Kenya, it's done in Tanzania, it's done in Botswana. MPs are supported. It's done in Nigeria. Nigeria, there's an improvement in their emoluments and the kind of social interventions they can.
So basically, you think MPs can be given more so that they can also assist more?
You asked him whether he regretted. He said no. He wished he could do more.
So the question I'm asking though, you feel, for example, your common fund, you could be given more. Exactly. How much do you get currently? Because so many figures have been put out.
We get about 70,000 a quarter.
Every quarter you get about 70,000 Ghana cedis. And you want more. So let's say if you had, how much would be sufficient?
I mean, listen, if you're dealing with...
and it depends on the revenue. So once the revenues are dwindling, sometimes you get 50,000, 48,000.
Because I've heard 50,000 before.
Yes.
If you're handling 50 students and each one is getting 1,000 cedis,
that's 50K.
It's gone. And
so how much do you feel would be adequate?
For instance, I just helped 20 students, so 20K gone.
And the tertiary fees have
let me just get this. Yeah. How much do you feel would be adequate? If you were given 100,000, 150, would that help?
There's another bigger issue, and I think I can express it here. Not all constituencies are alike.
Yes.
I have over 300,000 in population. He has about 60, or I don't know.
Yeah, I have about 60 and about 35,000 voter population.
You see?
Wow. He has about 300,000, maybe
and
about 80,000 or
140K
voter
population. So when you give him the same cake as I, then you're depriving
disparities.
And that is one of the...
So even in that
is one
you're
of the...
suggesting here that if we could even align the common fund based on constituency size and population, it would be a good thing. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree, because you see, the common fund to the assemblies is also disproportionately aligned because the municipalities get more than the district assemblies. And the metros get more than the municipalities.
Wow.
So a similar formula could be designed for MPs whose constituency size and population density
the Dominic Kwabenyas,
are bigger.
The Kwabre East.
I mean, you look at Bantama.
Yeah,
exactly.
You want to compare that with Sege and Ayawaso or something.
Look, I mean, so when we are crying and Jifar Gomashi, Ketu South, she's simply overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because South, if I'm crying, I have a voter population of about 35,000. And I'm crying. Then she asks me, what should she do?
Yeah. So I think that is one of the issues that I always talk about, that not all constituencies are alike. If he gets 10 kilometers of road and I get 10 kilometers of road, you're not being fair to Ajan Sotum. in the sense that my size is bigger. My one electoral area is probably his constituency.
But conversely, physically, some constituencies may be
the size
of
of
population density is smaller, but physically wide.
Mine is both.
Which means that even moving around, it would also involve more.
Adaklu may seem small in terms of population density,
right?
But geographically, it's huge.
I want us to look into the other issues, but I just wanted a quick take on this. So, disparities, differences in your constituencies. But you, for example, do you feel if you had X amount, it would have been better than what you're getting? So you're expecting about 70K. Yeah. Would maybe a 150K have worked better for you, or a 200K? I mean, let's be realistic so that we know where we should have. So where you sit, which figure would you have said, this would help me better? 250,000
for a quarter.
250,000 Ghana cedis.
Absolutely. For a quarter, yes.
Because that would be better in terms of dealing with some of these issues. And you wouldn't get out of pocket. But at least it would be better than what is now.
Much better.
How about you?
Yes, I think between 250 to 300.
250 to 300,000.
Because that could, and there's also a formula for spending the money.
Right.
There's a portion that's supposed to go to education, there's a portion to health, a portion to social intervention, a portion to infrastructure, and a portion for goods and services.
Right.
So you don't have the money, you are not at liberty to spend it on one item. That's also the difficulty. You must satisfy the
all the different
requirements.
Categories.
So there's a small amount that goes to education, a proportion that will go to health. Because you can't abandon all
Interesting. These are some dynamics that I guess most people are not aware of, and it's very interesting that we've put them out here today. But thank you so much for the education. And of course, so 200, 250 to 300. And of course, that would also mean more money in our kitty. If we had more, we'd be able to do more for them.
And they should appreciate the fact that we need appropriate records. So not all activities will be covered by common fund. I mean, it has to be receipted.
Right.
And sometimes it's a challenge when you're talking with people or you're dealing with people and you're like, child, this thing you want me to help you with, I can't use a common fund for. That is,
those are challenges.
Yeah.
Let's quickly get into
let me add this. It may not necessarily mean more revenue. For instance, government undertook what they call IPEP about 2 years ago. IPEP.
Right.
And some of the IPEP, lots of them have run into problems in terms of completion. If they had channeled that through the MPs, I think there would have been a better result. So it's all about policy alignment.
Policy alignment.
Because funding has been made available in the budget, but implementation ran into problems. If I were MP and I'm in charge of 2 of those IPEP projects, I have an interest. Because if I don't complete it for Ajebu or Gemini or Jakiti or Tukwalime or Ahon or Kaira or Chate, I'll lose votes there. But because you leave it in the hands of a public servant who is so detached from the people, who as a supervisor doesn't even speak the language of the people.
So are you speaking of the infrastructure for poverty eradication?
Exactly. That could have been rolled out through the MPs.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get to some of the core issues we've tabled for today. And the minority, of course, is hauling the finance minister before Parliament. Yesterday, it was interesting because we had the Bongo MP, Edward Bawa, right here. And I put it to him. In fact, he joined us via phone. And I put it to him that, look, so what are you going to do about it? What are the steps Parliament can take on this matter? And he said, I'm going to file an urgent question. And he actually sent me, a copy of what he had put out there, summoning, or calling for the Minister for Finance to find out what he is doing to slow down the increments of petroleum products prices at the pumps. And that was filed yesterday. Looking at where we find ourselves currently in terms of, the fuel pricing, now LPG is up, fuel is up. Dr. Dixon, for the 8th year, in fact, the projections by Duncan Amwa and others are that we'll be hitting 9 very soon. And if you look at the fact that yesterday we're looking at $111 per barrel, and today we're looking at $116 for Brent, it's just getting worse by the day. Our taxes are slapped on. The percentages are in there. The OMCs cannot do anything in terms of, because when you look at producing, the chain of producing and then making your, what do they even call them? Not the revenue, There's this word that escapes me, but they must also make their margins.
Markups.
Markups. You get it? So I really don't know. Contemplating this problem, it's a big issue for me sitting here because Charlie, it's as though, Charlie, check like every time I go to the fuel pump, action to go on, something has changed. And I can't even put the sort of gallons I was putting in my car previously. I have to limit. Everyone is... Dixon, your take on that.
So it is as real as you've stated. Prices are high, and I think that, and I've been misunderstood on many quarters. I really think that in times like this, we need to readjust our mode of operation. And I really, if I was a director of many companies, maybe I would reduce the working days for my staff members so that they can work 4 days instead of 5, and at least cut down on that extra, day. So I really think that, and then even our visitations has to be very carefully looked at. And then we need to also consider carpooling, or as it is, if there are 2 employees at Joy who live in my constituency, they should find a way of joining. So maybe you can do 3 days of driving, and then I'll also do the next 3 days.
Right.
I'm not here to say that it's right that the prices are going high, but I'm just saying that, folks, this is the situation we're in. We need to adjust to the situation to save some money and to be able to live on our ever staying same salaries, if you understand what I'm saying. Because once a year takes off, if you are getting 10K, it's 10K across. But the prices are going up, so we need to adjust. And I really think that Russia has worsened the scenario. And it's very crucial that we get that in our heads, that if it was going to be better, just the stakes within Russia and Ukraine has worsened the global supply chain. We
produce oil, but only to a limited extent. So it means we still have to, and when you put in, the matter to do with toll, then it makes everything even more complicated.
And mind you, producers don't determine the price. I mean, you don't determine the price. OPEC does, and OPEC as a conglomerate on its own, lives in a whole different world, and that is one of the key things we have to come to terms with. That we consume more than we produce. That is one thing, and these are hard times. Not so surprising after a pandemic, or even, I'm waiting for the pandemic to be called off, but literally, post-pandemic recoveries are not isolated from some of these things. These were expectations that the world, had in mind once the disease had taken over for a while. As part of the rebound, demands for oil would increase, first of all, and then prices will go up. So these are sort of, I wouldn't say normal trends, but expected trends. But unfortunately, with the crisis in Ukraine, it's just, if it was going to be 10 percentage points up, now it's 20 because of...
What is your expected trend? So we've been told that we'll be hitting 9 cedis per litre before the end of month, or by end of month. Some have said, the global price would hit $120, and we're already inching there, 116 today, and all of that. What are your projections, in this month of March?
I would hesitate to make a projection, just because I don't have the numbers with me, and I'm very professional when it comes to...
But do you suspect from the trend you're seeing that things are going to continue ticking up?
If we don't do some subsidies, or if we don't get some subsidies.
Are subsidies the way to go? Because that has also been spoken of. Only yesterday I heard talk of that we subsidize, but the caution there is that if government subsidizes, you will, as the ordinary citizen, at some point you will have to pay back, maybe through your nose.
Well, what's quite obvious is that either way we get to pay, because once inflation is increased, then we feel it as well. So either way, we are screwed. That's in simple terms, But like I said, lifestyle modifications is what is the way to go. And we all need to readjust in the short term until we figure out where we're really going, because they're calling it annoying. I mean, annoying in local parlance, annoying. And I'm feeling it, he's feeling it, and we're all being cautious. And the other recommendation I made that people didn't appreciate was the fact that your SUV, sports utility vehicles, or the V8s, your monthly consumption can be reduced if you just tip down to your La Paz Toyotas, Corollas and things like that, which then would help us. I'm really considering a much smaller car for my trips to Parliament so that I can save some money. So these are lifestyle modifications that we all need to do. If I'm doing long journeys, then I ride with the...
Obviously, 10K. Also, how many liters have gone? So, I mean, that would be a good adjustment. So you are contemplating that to cut down on your fuel costs.
Absolutely.
So before we get to the substantive matter of, that urgent question, because we're talking about the surrounding issues, the fuel price increments and the increments across the board, basically, transport fares and everything. What is your quick reaction to that so we get to the urgent question as well?
I heard them link that to the Ukrainian crisis.
Fair, right?
No.
Not fair?
No.
Why not?
Look, fuel prices...
Before the Ukrainian crisis. No. Yeah. Before, let me just set the premise. Yes, there were challenges. I mean, from April 2021...
Can I make the...
When it hit 6.90, yeah. From April 2021, we have seen adjustments and all of that. Within these first few months alone, 30%, yes, we know. But you cannot take away the fact that we have been operating not $62, but anywhere between $75 and $90-something. Now we've shot 100, we're at 105, 111, 116. You have to appreciate that.
No, can I make the point?
Okay.
Under this government, between 2020 to 2021, fuel prices were increased about 18 times. NDC released a press statement on this matter and bemoaned that scenario. Between January and last week, when the Ukrainian crisis hit, fuel prices had gone up about 7 times. Between January, however slight it was, there was a change. And so some persons, jokes were shared on social media and it was like a disco light. Every time you get to the pump, there's a change in the figure, upwards. It was a big joke.
Right.
Then, of course, the Ukrainian crisis hit. The government has always been telling us that they don't control PURC. They don't. They don't control the fuel prices. And so the adjustments will come when it has to come. So the point is that as a country, we've not been able to manage. It appears that the pricing in fuel is linked to the status
Russia
of our...
is a huge producer.
Let me make this point.
Okay.
Look, there is a direct correlation between the status of our cedi to the dollar to the fuel price. Check it.
Okay, so I'll give you that because the exchange rate is one of the factors in terms of. After all, you purchase with hard currency,
you can't
ignore and all of that.
You can't ignore.
But you also can't.
But
you also can't.
It only exacerbates.
Right.
That's what I've been
saying. But you already
that's exactly the point.
No, but he hasn't already. This government hasn't done well with the fuel prices.
So explain it for us. What exactly is it? Because the taxes that were slapped on, I mean, a lot of them came from your end, your administration.
Amen.
Why?
Yes, a lot of them came.
They came to reverse.
They were carried on. Though you came through with deregulation.
They came to reverse all. They came to reverse all.
Not all of them.
I reintroduced new ones. So as for taxation, they decided to repeal a lot lot of our tax laws. Because they labeled them, they labeled them nuisance taxes.
Right? Which became a reduction in our tax burdens.
Which tax burden? And then you introduce twice the number of taxes.
So Roxanne, the point is what?
The point is that this government should be held liable.
For Russia?
No, not for Russia. Russia just occurred last week.
Russia
is a latter-day occurrence.
No, do you know that even a threat
we
of
have
war,
been crying about your
can increase prices?
Of course, I agree.
So and when was it?
How much were you charging when crude was selling at 40? How much were you charging?
Oh, crude at 40?
Yes. Why? Crude didn't sell at 40 in your time?
I don't have the exact price.
I have the figures. Crude sold at 40 in your time. You didn't reduce the prices.
Oh.
You understand?
So
it is
factors.
No. So the cry of the people is that when crude prices dropped, government ought to reduce fuel prices, but you don't see the drastic reduction. Now you want us to retighten our belt
not necessarily. When prices do change,
but apart from instances where there have been
marginal, sometimes you see a 0.01
real interventions in terms of, and it's been very marginal, some 8 pesos or something. But we are talking.
It doesn't even hit 8 pesos.
When you look at
at
the recent difference that I saw, the most recent one, 7.33 to 8.16, that is 83 pesos, almost 1 cedi.
It's huge.
That's huge.
I mean, when there are any marginal, it's pesos, but
we don't know why.
But I think he shouldn't discount the Russian.
Right. I'm not discounting. I'm saying Russia.
So you're blaming this administration.
Russia is a latter-day occurrence. Russia is less than a week.
Why should we blame? Why should we blame? Doc, hold on. Let's do this. Let's not have too much of a banter. Why should we blame the NPP for where we sit now in terms of oil pricing? You've mentioned the exchange rate.
Yes.
What else?
The exchange rate, and then the fact that they have destroyed toll. Yes, you have destroyed toll. Toll is no longer
that is
processing.
Let him make.
Sorry.
You understand? We had toll.
We still have toll.
Yes, but what's the status of toll?
We still have toll.
Toll
is actually under very good restructured, and I'm very happy.
How long do you restructure toll? How long must it take?
I mean, if you want to go to TOR and its problems, those problems didn't start just with the MPP. But again,
TOR was refining.
Hold on. But again, the problem would be that I would also look at you and say, how long will it take you to deal with the mess of TOR? Because you see now, because we are ill prepared, because TOR is not doing what it is meant to be, we are suffering even more shocks from the Russian.
TOR before they took over was refining crude and was helping.
So one, what's your exchange rate? 2, deal with the TOR situation.
Yes, because if we had a refinery operating, then we could be processing some of our crude.
Okay. Now, so with this,
the price.
Right.
Yes, but it
will impact. It will affect
the cost.
Because
the final cost.
Duncan Amwa mentioned here yesterday, if you are processing in your country,
correct,
and dispatching across,
transport,
it's far different from importing from another country. The different logistical cost, bringing it into your country, now spreading across. I mean, that is a different ballgame.
Improves your exchange rate.
Thank you. Exactly.
You know that.
But how do you feel about the minority then tabling this urgent question? The Bongo MP, he told me he went ahead.
If I may touch on that.
No, I want his reaction. I want his reaction.
No, but
to that. Do you feel it is it's over the top, calling the finance minister, before Parliament to answer these questions?
You know, I've always been wondering why certain things almost suddenly appear urgent, and I love it when the speaker says, "Listen, it might appear urgent to you as a member of Parliament, but in their purview, in their assessment of the world and everything else, it might not necessarily be urgent."
Don't you see the urgency of the situation when it comes to fuel prices and how once fuel goes up, it affects everything? Don't you see the urgency in that and for some remedial measures to speedily be brought to bear?
I think that fuel price increases are a huge problem. I admit to that. Now, the key thing is that we ought to know what we can do something about, and we ought to know what we can't do anything about. And as I've stated many times, the prices are not set by us as a nation. It's a worldwide conglomerate that sets the prices. What we can do in the interim maybe is to bring relief in some of the tax bits that we impose as a nation. But then again, we'll suffer on our developmental end as well. So it's a very tough situation we're in. We already have a budget that is out, and under, in the sense that the revenues that the finance minister had projected for even this year is short by 6 billion, or even more than the 6 billion, I mean, per how things are going. So I appreciate the challenges that the finance minister has at the moment, and it's important that we table these things out and be realistic in our expectations.
Is it right to haul him before Parliament? I mean, he has to come and answer, right?
I think that maybe it's a bit too premature. Because
after all these increments, 30% within this period in the year, following from last year, following from transport fare hikes, you think it's premature?
The reason why I think it's premature is the fact that, you know, we're not even at the peak of all of this, in all fairness. We don't know in 2 weeks' time where Russia's...
But people are not... You see, the point is we may not be at the peak, but people are feeling the peak in their pockets.
Well,
realistic.
Well, I think that, in all honesty, we all read the news. There are business outlets that are churning out data, information about how world prices are increasing. We all read these things. No business director or business guru in this country is not making adjustments and necessarily waiting for what finance minister will say. I mean, let me just state it categorically that private enterprise doesn't factor all their decisions strictly on government. You know, they take risk and they do things in a very different way. And that's why they are private enterprise. And as it stands right now, some of the businessmen I've talked to are looking to other ways and means of, restructuring their business. If you go to the likes of Casapreco, where they use still a lot of energy in terms of their production, right. They have to take decisions not waiting for government. If not, I mean, the losses will come and they'll see it glaringly in the second quarter. So these are shareholder, business owner decisions that will listen to the finance minister, but will pay more attention to the current scenario and how Russia impacts the Casapreco that we drink in this country. And these are the associations that, it pains me that the Dafia McCaws and the Roxons of this country are failing to recognize the fact that, hey, Russia is real and as real as COVID was.
Let's also be real here.
And we need not discount
it. And I do appreciate the fact that, I mean, your term in Parliament has not been that lengthy. But if you had been in Parliament during their time, and there have been times like that where fuel prices have escalated, been rising and all of that, are you telling me your side would not have done same?
Well, like I said, we would, but it's premature.
Okay, let me come to you quickly on this point.
What is disappointing is for the Dr. Kisis to refuse to accept responsibility for their non-performance in handling the economic affairs of this country. Because there's no way you can link the poor performance of this government to Russia. In fact, there have been so much attempt to link it even to COVID. Now, suddenly, they are rushing away from COVID to Russia. But that's by the by. Look, the finance minister declared in this country that he was going to do a 20% cut in expenditure by way of relief. No, not relief, but
so budget cuts. Budget cuts,
yes,
right? Does Parliament, since you brought it up, does Parliament have the details of that?
Yeah, exactly. So I filed a question, directed at him to come and tell Parliament what are the details, the details of that 20% cut. Now, already there's a funding gap of 36 billion in the 2022 budget.
Right.
He has a revenue projection of 100 billion, an expenditure projection of 136 billion. That was the appropriation we passed. All right. So even if e-levy is not happening, that's another gap of, let's say, 7 billion.
Right.
That takes the funding gap to 42,
43
billion.
Right.
This government, when they took over, the expenditure of government before they took over was our 45 billion under President Mahama.
But the times have changed.
Hold on. With a revenue projection of about 38 to 37, Revenue collection has improved to about 60 billion now.
The last I recall is 50 something, but they are doing pretty well.
Let's say
they
about
overshot
60 billion.
They overshot the,
so let's say 60
GRA's
billion.
estimations, right?
Why couldn't the government stay within its means? Why do we necessarily have to move expenditure lines from 45 billion to 136 billion in 5 years? All right? All right? So government can simply bring succor and comfort to itself, its own operations, if it reduces the expenditure lines. For instance, in the 2022 budget, government intends to recruit 500 presidential staffers for 2022.
That's
why would the government want to do that in this country?
That's not the case.
It is. Why? It's in the budget. So how do you say that it's not the case?
And I was going to ask.
It's in the budget. So
where exactly you're getting the figures from? So you're relying on what has been.
It's in the budget.
Because this has been mentioned on this show before.
Yes, it's in the budget.
I educate him a little bit.
No, hold on. I don't need
hold on.
Let me.
You need the help. I just wanted to chip in on this matter very quickly.
No, let me make my point.
Let me just cite one.
No, let me make my point.
Are you aware?
Let me make my point.
It is okay. Just note it down and we'll come to it.
If a government is a presidency decide to bring all other important state institutions under its aegis, that's not my business. If you decide to bring, for instance, the school feeding program, which was under the Ministry of Gender, and because of some disagreement, you say it should come under the office of the president. That is the office of the president. If you decide to make the scholarship secretariat an agency under the office of the president, that's your business. If you decide to make
you know the right thing.
Yes, but you are saying presidential staffers. You are not labeling them as public servants. You have labeled them as presidential staffers.
So their problem is how they are addressing them.
Thank you.
That's the problem.
So if you are recruiting presidential staffers, you are
tomatoes.
No, you are not recruiting staff for NIA. You are not recruiting staff for scholarship secretariat. So don't confuse the argument. You have labeled them as presidential staffers. And presidential staffers don't work at the office of the national ID. No scholarship.
So how does this whole bit of
government, for instance,
hauling the finance minister to
explain, to tell us
Parliament? I mean, we've been told, for example, that in reality, your own colleague on the floor of Parliament, on your side of Parliament.
Let me make the point. Then
so very quickly on that, because I want to
government in these crunch times has increased fees and charges by between 15 to 30%. Fees and charges. Every government service.
And it has become so appropriate considering...
Why? Why has it become so appropriate?
Considering the cost of
Why has it become so appropriate?
Even now.
Look, you accept the fact that we are in crunch times. And yet you are saying that when I'm going to buy... when I'm going to apply
how do you attend to operational expenses?
So my question still stands. How does this solve the problem? Because we've been told you hold the purse strings when it comes to some level of controlling what the executive does. But when it comes to fuel prices and the components and what else the ripple effects are, it is managed by the executive. You don't manage that. And no matter what, you can't control that. So is this not a futile attempt? You haul the finance minister, he will tell you, for X reason, the same things we are talking about. Exchange rate, prices on the global market. What does this achieve, really?
But at least it's an opportunity for the people to hear exactly the interventions that the government has to offer.
Next time, call the energy minister.
No? Why? The finance minister?
No,
it was mentioned, just so you know, the components that go into
and particularly
fuel pricing. It has been mentioned that 2 out of 3 are under the finance ministry. And so he should come and answer. So that's just
and these and many other things. Look, you've lifted the 50% benchmarks on import duties. That is a source of
it's under consideration.
But there's a new dynamic in front of that. You're aware of it.
See, when they say it's a new dynamic, it's a mere declaration of intention. They haven't carried it out. So that's another.
Because Ijapamesa, your colleague, has been talking about that development.
So this government in 2022 is practically squeezing us dry, and they want to top this with e-levy. It won't happen.
The e-levy won't happen?
It won't happen. It won't happen.
Professor Tukuba has been saying that it may be terrible and all of that, but we need, in fact, where we find ourselves, we need the e-levy. You're saying it won't happen? Are you against economic progress of Ghana?
We have 24,
is the NDC against the economic progress of Ghana? Because if even people who have worked with your administration in the past are saying that it's terrible, but we need it.
That's a very wicked.
Why is it wicked?
We have 24 tax handles. 24. 24. And this, at the end of the year, last year, gave us in excess of 60 billion Ghana cedis, minus all borrowings, minus donations, minus other sources of revenue that we get. What has government done to reduce its own expenditure? Government, for instance, is buying 100 buses for MMT, Metro Mats. Do we need 100 buses for Metro Mats?
Let me take a quick look. Let me take a quick look at this comment that comes in. It's interesting. Raymond Abiu says on Facebook, he's watching live. He says, one thing is conspicuously missing in our conversation as a country, which is the call for the resignation of Ken Ofori-Atta. Ken is directly responsible for Ghana's financial woes and should be forced to account for the borrowing he's engaged in since becoming finance minister. And he goes on to talk about other things. Do you subscribe to this, where people say that he's not managed the economy properly, and even in terms of petroleum prices?
I think so.
You think he should go?
The Honorable Isaac Adongo has been speaking. He's been saying that Ken's own firm and that of the Minister of State at the Office of the Ministry of Finance have turned themselves into book runners, and every borrowing that we do, they earn a fee. And I think that's very, very important.
You have to prove that.
No, he has the evidence. The man says he has the evidence. He's done his checks. Look, did you listen to them when they were vetted? They admitted to that.
No.
They admitted to that. So why?
So basically, on the back of what do you think Ken Ofori-Atta should go?
In 5 years, Ken has borrowed in excess of 230 billion Ghana cedis. In 5 years.
Yes.
All right? Now, has he been able to account for all these monies? Some of the monies, he claims that in 2021, we paid in excess of 31 billion in interest payments in servicing the loans alone.
What were you doing under your leadership?
Please, 31 billion. Ask him how much of those facilities were procured under their regime and what has it been applied to. And I'll give you another scenario. We made some borrowings. Time is running on those. Some of them, the moratorium has even elapsed. So we are beginning to service them. Yet we have not put those loans to the purpose for which we borrowed them. I'll give you one.
Ketasi Defense.
We borrowed some money to do the three-lane road project. That project was supposed to have been completed in 18 months. We are in 2022. Nothing has happened. We borrowed 256 million euros to do the Sharma or Tema to the Adome Bridge dual carriage multi-nodal road project. That project was supposed to have been completed in 36 months. It was commissioned, or it was the president cut the sword in October 2020.
Beyond
a couple of months before the elections.
I think
we're in March 2022. Nothing has happened on that project. Efian Kwanta Hospital project, we took money. Nothing has happened. We've just taken money to do the Peduasi to Koforidua Nodal Road. We've just taken another plenty money in excess of $400 million to do the Echi to Nketepa bridge over the Fram.
Is that not why? So you say that you feel the finance minister should be sacked?
Because he's done a lot of borrowings. The monies have not been applied to the projects for which
you're quick. 30 seconds.
A finance minister will stop collection of
One key thing. It isn't necessarily how much you borrow, but what you do with it.
Thank you. And what have you done with it?
And what I think the firm should look at is that there's been projects upon projects.
But if you go, to what you do with it, tell me the close to 200 billion or so that has been borrowed.
No, the most recent borrowing.
What has your administration done with all that?
Hasn't even arrived. I mean, literally.
Do you know one of the things? Hold on.
So how can you show that?
Do you know one of the things that, as a media person, when I go out there, people talk about the fact that this administration, even if the borrowing, we had seen so much, I mean, something commensurable, we wouldn't feel paid. But we don't see it. That is what some people say. I'm just reflecting what people
I'm
say.
listening.
So I want you to answer those Ghanaians. That with the excess of 200 billion, what has your administration done with it?
In all fairness, the most painful thing is improvement of human capital. It is difficult to assess. It is difficult to feel. It is difficult to really account to your wife that all the monies you've been making, you've been paying school fees for your children, and your wife wonders where all that money went. It's quite difficult. And I really think that until we come to terms with the fact that, listen, improvement in our human capital has been one of the front burner issues for the president. And we all know.
How have you achieved that?
Oh, well, I mean...
and I don't want you to go into too much detail because we don't have
budget
too much
for
time,
education...
But I want you to mention specifics.
The budget for their education was 20 million. We doubled it to 40 million. And then when you go to the likes of Abomosu...
Billion or million?
When you go to the likes of Abomosu, the STEM school that's been built is just quadruple, or even, if I should say, more than quadruple the size of the E blocks.
What is the STEM school?
Oh, Masa, this is the science tech program.
But these are projects we are rolling.
No, and if you should see the facility.
Let's talk about.
No, I'm saying,
I have seen plans and all of that. But let's talk about plans. Let's talk about.
They are on the ground and working.
You don't like E blocks, but you want
already.
No, we've actually continued about 30 of the E blocks,
out of the 200.
and most of them are
out of the 200.
During your tenure,
yes.
How many did you do before leaving?
We finished 49.
And if we've come and added over 30, haven't we done well?
At where?
Oh, do you need a list?
Yes, I do.
So you feel that with these free SHS and maybe the other components justify what we have spent in supposedly building our social capital?
I cry when I drive on my roads, but then what gives me solace is that, listen, some child has had the opportunity to get education and will be to the benefit of the nation 10 years down the line. And we've had to sacrifice bad roads for good education, and that has been the scenario. But it is a developmental agenda, and we should support it and embrace it. Nothing can replace good education. Education is expensive. As they say, if you like, try ignorance. Ignorance is quadruple.
Another.
Let me rebut.
We can't have
let me rebut what
back and forth rebuttals.
The free SHS for the past 5 years, the amount of money they've spent on free SHS is just about 10 billion.
Right. Let's 10
billion.
Yeah, that is
10
fine.
billion.
That is fine.
So let's talk about the infrastructure.
Let's take infrastructure.
Gentlemen,
how many schools have you built?
It is all right. I mean, this is a conversation.
Yes, how many schools have you built?
No.
You know, there's an issue.
We don't have to
complete blocks.
This is a conversation that we are always going to have, especially ahead of 2024. But staying with schools,
sector
staying on the bit of schools.
Just one thing.
Roxanne, staying on the bit of schools.
Yes.
I beg.
We've been told by the caretaker minister for gender, social protection and all of that if you're thinking of the school feeding program, you may have to hold on for a while because there are certain conditions, and we know of all these. Expanding it is not going to be something that we're going to see boom happening. And it takes me back. School feeding, Kufuor, award-winning program, globally recognized, to where we are currently. It's all about money. Again, I'll put it to you. Don't you feel then that your end in Parliament is shooting us all in the foot, and that maybe we need the e-levy to push some of these programs?
Akapo, how does e-levy affect school feeding? When you ask government,
you need some further.
No, Dr. Kisi.
I was hoping.
No, Dr. Kisi.
I was hoping for one thing.
You are. Can I
clarify one thing? Just one thing.
You are whittling my time away.
Just one thing.
Akapo.
You have a minute. I'll give you a minute.
They asked government, what do you intend to apply the e-levy to? They say cyber security. They say cyber security.
Technological improvement.
Please.
I'm giving you a minute.
Cyber security. You start 1 billion. When we interrogated the figure, is less than 400 million is going to you start. They say road contractors. When we interrogate the figure, it's only 1 billion. We ask government, the rest, what will you apply it to?
So where do we get money for the school feeding program? Where should we get money?
It's because it's budgeted from tax collected.
And
the
e-levy. You know about the fluctuation when it comes to taxes.
No, the e-levy E-levy is not going to be applied to what do you call it? To school feeding. School feeding is not funded from the E-levy. They themselves are saying so. I am not saying.
Before you come,
they say they will apply E-levy to
so your minute is actually up. But before you come in, Dr.
He whittled away about 30 seconds.
I want us to actually see and listen to what the caretaker minister had to say on the subject.
So, Speaker, currently the expansion of the program is on hold. We are clearing all arrears of caterers and putting in place measures to ensure effective and efficient service delivery to all beneficiary schools, as well as the caterers. We are also putting in place a management information system to enhance efficiency and effectiveness of the system. We shall surely inform this August House when we are ready to expand the program to cover additional schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, so that was the caretaker minister, Cecilia Abinadapa. When are you going to be ready to bring in other schools? Because when we are ready, when can be a very long pipeline? When?
I mean, there's one key thing, and I just want to be just as crystal clear. Government can only do so much in two ways, either through taxes or loans. And if we won't do the taxes, we have to borrow. If we won't borrow, then we have to do the...
Suleiman Abrahima, Media Foundation for West Africa, says you guys are just playing a game because... Hold it. You are just playing a game because whether you do e-levy or whatever, you will still go to the IMF. That's what he thinks.
You know, there's one...
IMF.
We may... I mean, listen, we're not isolated from the rest of the world. Going for some support from IMF and depending on IMF is a whole different thing. And from a financial standpoint, when you're looking for avenues to support programs and projects, you always don't close your doors to everybody. Wherever there's a flow, you go and grab.
But you've been going to the IMF
and no, that's why I'm saying that.
We're taking COVID relief funds.
Depending heavily on them.
And under declaring them.
And then also, the key thing, and let me say this, IMF is not the solution we want. We want self-reliance. And that is what Ghana should be going for.
Speaking of that self-reliance, and this is the final bit I want you gentlemen to look at. There are so many dynamics, it's hydra-headed, but let me try and box them together. We've even heard the CEO of the Kufuor Foundation say that we need certain thinking minds when it comes to Ghana Beyond Aid, because I don't know whether that is a suggestion that we don't have the minds right now. But Professor Atuguba, Raymond Atuguba, when you look at all these developments we've had, he says no one wants military intervention in Ghana. Nobody wants.
Absolutely.
But then he says, but looking at our economic turmoil, you are putting in place the ingredients that spark these things. Unfortunately for us, we have happenings in sister countries, neighboring countries, some of them right bordering our country like Burkina Faso. And that if you don't do the right things, with Ghana desperately broke, we could end up there. Some members from your party, KT Hammond and others, just today I was reading what Kojo Nkrumah said, that you can have divergent views, but don't try to trample on our democracy. Do you feel it is not justified? Look, I have a message from Musa Abatua who says, God bless Professor Raymond Atuguba. He has spoken on behalf of Ghanaians. The government has no reason to get us into this economic quagmire. What have they done with the $11 billion bonds raised within the space of 4 years? It goes on and on.
Listen.
Is it not justified?
No. Listen, there's been Great Depression in many countries. The Brits have had it. They didn't go on a coup d'etat. And that was even worse than what we're going through now. And let's be very frank with ourselves. The Americans in the 1909s and thing with the Great Depression, they didn't take up arms.
1909?
You know, Great Depression, I mean, they didn't take up arms.
The United States.
You're comparing us to 1909.
No, what I'm saying is that they were in more dire
Is our economy in a depression?
That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that even with them, in those scenarios where they had money, they didn't have food to buy, they didn't go on a coup d'etat. And that is what we're trying to say, that listen, it is not an alternative. Let's not bring it in the discuss. It is not. We've been there before. And we know from history that it did not do as well. What we rather need is to arm ourselves with more ideas, more businesses to fight it. That is what I want to hear. I want to have more entrepreneurs going crazy about Ghana, and all of us helping making Ghana a more sound place to do business. And that is what I want to hear from my other people, not this alternative, which we all know. When the guns are on the street...
So was Prof wrong?
He is very wrong.
Okay.
He should change his lingua.
All right.
Absolutely.
Your quick take on that as we
my quick
wrap the
take is
conversation.
that when Captain Budu Kumsin
retired
in 2016, said the way the economy was going, the way
and that just reminds me to chip in. Abdul Malik Kwekubako has mentioned. I mean, we've had this rhetoric. It's not the first time.
Yes.
2001, 2004, 2008,
people
2013. Around all these times, we've had people talk about these things. It didn't.
People caution. When he said so, nobody decried it. Men in government took it in their stride and took precaution. A month ago, my own leader in government, the Honorable Arnon Dombre, he cautioned. He said, by our conduct, if we are not careful, we're inviting the military to intervene, and that we should be careful.
That is our conduct.
Yes. But what did Raymond say wrong? Markedly different. What did he say? He said, if we are not careful.
So you're drawing a nexus between what Arnon Dombre said about the behavior of MPs
and people saw it as
creating this and this one as well.
Yes, this one too is a caution. So I'm flabbergasted as to why even members of parliament will be calling for his head.
I haven't called for his head.
No, not you, but okay, some members of parliament.
I've heard KT Hammond.
Yes, maybe will be calling for his head, including ex-military officers like my senior in Kraba Fadati. It's unfair.
Okay.
And look, if you listen to him, he even used anecdotes, his own personal experience, to say that coup is not justified under any circumstance. But we should be careful. And he was also throwing the caution to the military. They shouldn't be trigger happy.
So for you, he did nothing wrong?
No.
Gentlemen.
And this was a work and exercise in academia.
Right. Thank you very much. Even as we talk about these issues, there's a lot more when we talk about our living standards, because that also evinces what the ordinary Ghanaian is going through. And we're going to share with you those bits as well. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Dr. Dixon Adumaku-Kizi, Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utum, and of course, Roxanne Nelson, Dafia Mekpo, Member of Parliament for South Dai. Yes. We take a break. When we return, we'll come through with more. Stay.